Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Ben Givarz. This is a show about how creatives use technology to tell their stories, and my guests today are two emerging music creatives based in Los Angeles, recording and mix engineer Jayda Love and Dolby Atmos mix engineer Juan Razuri, both of whom worked on the Grammy-winning mixtape by rapper and songwriter Doechii, titled Alligator Bites Never Heal. This mixtape has been widely praised by fans and the industry alike, winning a Grammy for Best Rap Album and also receiving a nomination for Best Rap Performance, with Doechii herself receiving a nomination for Best New Artist. She is also the 2025 Woman of the Year as awarded by Billboard magazine, an honor established to recognize women in the music industry who have made significant contributions to the business and who inspire generations of women to take on increasing responsibilities within the field. In this conversation, Jayda and Juan share their own inspirational stories of how they got their starts in the recording industry. Jayda as a recording and mix engineer in Chicago, and then making her way to LA to work with Doechii, and Juan learning Dolby Atmos mixing at USC's prestigious Thornton School of Music, and how they were connected through Doechii's label Top Dog Entertainment in Los Angeles, where they'd go on to work on the mixtape. So this is a cool story, with Jayda sharing her take on the origin and concept, which came together through Doechii's Swap Session singles. She also takes us into some of the recording sessions and her favorite bits of gear, and how she worked with the inspirational group of producers who also contributed to the mixtape. Juan gets into the techniques he used to honor these producers and Jayda's work through his Dolby Atmos mixes which she started in headphones and then took into the studio to complete. They also talk about the Dolby Atmos listening sessions they did together in LA and their advice for young creatives breaking into the industry now. It's a fun and inspiring conversation with two emerging creatives who have already accomplished great things in their young careers. This is Jayda Love and Juan Razuri on Doechii, Alligator Bites Never Heal in Dolby Atmos. All right, excited to welcome to Dolby Creator Talks recording and mix engineer Jayda Love and Dolby Atmos mix engineer Juan Razuri, both based in Los Angeles. Hello, and great to see you both.
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
All right, what's up with you guys? Well, thank you both for taking some time with me today to share a bit about yourselves and the work you did on Doechii's Alligator Bites Never Heal, which of course was awarded a Grammy for Best Rap Album. So huge congrats on that. But first, I'm definitely interested to hear a little bit about your backgrounds, because although I don't know both of your ages specifically, I believe you're both relatively young, which is wonderful. And I think it's really cool that the industry experience that you already have at this stage and the work that you've done on a high profile release like this is probably really interesting to a lot of our viewers and listeners. I think it's special that you've had this much experience early on, but maybe we can start with you, Jayda, a little bit about how you got going as an engineer.
Yeah, so I keep my age secret just for, industry top secret. That's the only thing I gatekeep. Anything else is open.
Fair enough.
But I got started, I went to college in Chicago at Columbia College, Chicago. And this actually might give away my age. Towards the middle of it, the pandemic hit. And I ended up really diving into my internship at Classic Studios, which is a great hub for engineers and musicians in Chicago. And I started mix assisting for an amazing person named Headache. And because of that, I got the opportunity to come out to Los Angeles. And on top of my mix assisting gigs, I was freelancing as a recording engineer. So all the sessions he couldn't do or the budget wasn't there, he would pass off to me. And I ended up getting on a Rolodex of a few studios out here, one of them being Hard Pink, which was a studio downtown in LA. And that was the call that I got to meet Miss Doechii about 2021. And that session that night, we recorded Stankapoo, which is the first song on Alligator Bites Never Heal. And since then, we've been working with each other. It was just good vibes. She sounded good. It was quick. It was just one of those things. And they were just kind of like, when are you available? And I'm like, anytime you guys need me, I'll be available. I thought she was super dope. And like from the first 3 sessions, I knew that she was like a really special person and artist and just really cool to work with. And we just kind of built up our relationship ever since then, and really just grown from her and the rest of TDE. And then fast forward to 2024, this summer, we started doing Swamp Sessions, which is something that she used to do on her YouTube channel before she got signed. Our first one, I believe, was Bullfrog, which is track 3 or 4 on the project. And from there, it was kind of just like a 2-month sprint of like, here are these cool swamp sessions. Now here's this mixtape. Now let's mix it and put it out. And everything's been crazy since then. So it's like the short version. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Wow, what an amazing transition to come from Chicago, which is an amazing city in and of itself, but into the industry here in Los Angeles, and to fall in with like Top Dog and an amazing artist like this. It's just really great transition, and I'm sure inspiring for people to hear that as well. So, Juan, share a little bit about your background. I know you went to USC and did some work there.
I'm born and raised here in LA, specifically in the Valley. Went to USC for music business and music production, and just for majority of that time, it was the time of like working with as many people as I could, as many artists and producers and engineers, and I had a mix of different internships in like some studios and some like more music business stuff, like music publishers and music tech companies, and eventually there was a period of time of like me trying to figure out like before finishing college like what area am I gonna really focus in, and finding what areas I didn't like too much. But there was always this thing of me wanting to continue with engineering, and uh I don't know, there was a point, there was an epiphany in the middle where through my mentors and professors, I realized that, you know, I'm not half bad at mixing, and I think I want to continue with this and continue to push on. Eventually, Dolby Atmos mixing got on my plate and became a possibility, and I felt very excited and very natural at it. I had a very in the beginning, obviously, there's so many like specific things with like tech things to set up and IO and all of that was like really challenging. But after that, it felt like it became a breeze for me. And yeah, I mean, eventually in that last year of college, I got to meet some of the folks from TDE who came on like a career fair type of thing, but specifically for music professionals. And they found out about my skills and they liked me and they wanted to have some more meetings happen. This was super close to graduation, and eventually I said yes to coming in as a studio assistant, studio intern, like right in the middle of May, I think, if I'm not wrong. And from then on, there was a context of like, yeah, they knew that I knew how to mix in Atmos, but it wasn't needed yet, and I was just doing like the traditional like runner, let's see, setting up, breaking down the studios for sessions and all that stuff, and eventually, as like Jada was starting to mention, and how it's very public out there, the creation of like this album was in a really tight time frame, and then like I got like a very last minute call in the middle of the week when I wasn't even there at the studios, from an engineer and an A&R from the team asking me, "Hey, we want you to try a mix out, an Atmos mix for this upcoming single of the album. Like, can you do this and like show us something in like 3-4 hours?" And it's like this was like the opportunity I was waiting for like months, and I was like, "Yeah, of course, okay, I got you." And it was just like terrifying, exciting all at the same time. And um, yeah, they loved it. It came out, and then Jada and I got connected like over text, if I'm not wrong, and it was just super fast. Like, hey, can you send me some mixes you've done in the past? I sent it, and then it was like, okay, I'm gonna send you the files in like the sends and batches like in the next 2-3 days, and we were in it for like I don't know, a week and a half, I think max. A lot of stuff happening in a week and a half, but yeah, that's how my path came up to that point.
Well, that's another great example, I think, of, you know, being at the right place at the right time, being with an organization that's, you know, putting creatives together, young creatives together, and taking chances and providing opportunities for them, which is super cool to have someone like Top Dog Entertainment here, you know, looking for those moments and putting people together to do that. Jada, you talked a little bit about the Swamp sessions, and some of the origin story of Alligator Bites Never Heal sort of goes back to those original Swamp sessions that she was doing, right? Which I think she released a lot of them through social media. They were kind of like these short songs that were written and recorded in like an hour-long period with a music video, and had some viral TikTok moments as well, right? And so you talked a little bit about some of the origins of your relationship with this project and with the artist, but take us kind of back to the beginning again, and what was the original concept, or your understanding of the concept for what would become this mixtape?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Doechii's like past releases had been singles, so and they were all, she does so much, so they were all kind of different like facets of what she could do. She had What It Is, which is a really big song where it's a R&B song to the core. Then she has like Persuasive, which is like house rap, and then she had Pacer, which was like screaming rap, and Crazy, which is just full screaming, and it's like she was just kind of, she did so much. So when trying to put an album together as a debut that showed everything that she does, it can be a harder task than one might think. You know, we felt like we had all this great music, but it was just, is this too much? Is this all over the place? Is this, what's the through line? And she's always a through line. So it was like a little bit of, you know, frustration that she talks about on the album. I know one song, like Boom Bap, she says, I'm everything. I can do anything. Like I can sing, I can rap. Just let me do me. So that was kind of, I think that's kind of where the project kind of started, like really the birth of it. Cause it was just like, okay, how do I show and introduce myself to people properly, creatively in one like palatable experience? And so that kind of, while trying to put together an album, we sort of had these loosies that we all loved. And then in the summer when she started doing Swamp sessions, it's like, okay, these new songs that I'm making also kind of fit with some of these older songs that we can finish up and tighten up and sequence together. And then, yeah, kind of put out, it was really around like Nissan Altima, which I think was like the third or fourth Swamp session when like the kind of virality of it started. And people started like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, this is a rollout? And she's like, well, I've had this idea for a mixtape. Like while I'm working on this album, let's do this mixtape that's just so I can get it out and like just not have to worry about the whole politicking of debuting as this like very high, you know, thing. And so around Nissan, it was like, okay, we got approval. Like, all right, you guys can drop it in August 30th. And we're like, okay, well, it's August like 6th now, which means we have to turn it in like 10 days or something. So it was like, okay, well, let's get to it then. And so that's kind of how quickly it started, of like trying to put an album together, realizing we had songs we loved. Let's just put out a project anyways. That's what Alligator Bites Never Heal was. Just all the songs that we all loved that maybe would have made an album at some point, but now get to live on in this project, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it really works as a mixtape. I mean, there are a lot of different styles on the entirety of the record, you know, so it lends itself well to a mixtape kind of vibe for sure. What was your approach to the recording process for the ones that you did? Was each one kind of different and unique, or, did you sort of have like an established vocal chain or bits of gear that you like to, use, or was it just sort of like whatever's going to happen in the moment, we're going to do it?
It was as consistent as my brain like allowed me to function. We moved around so much, and so many, like her voice changed so much over the entire time too. So it was like our recording chain at the time was like a U87, a Neve of some sort, either 1073 or 1084, and then either an LA2A, a Silverface 1176, or a Two-Tech CL1B. It really just depended on the song. Like for me, if she was like in a lower, smoother tone, then I would do an 1176. If she's like her higher pitch, I'm doing an LA2A or a CL1B because I know she's going to be hitting it harder and I have less variables that I need to have to worry about. And then sometimes she would use a C800 depending on what was available. It was kind of just, again, whatever was there, whatever we kind of had and whatever the song called for, I would kind of make that decision just like in the split second of like, okay, I've heard the beat. I think this vocal chant would sound cool. And then as long as it was clear and she could hear herself, she's kind of rocking with it. So that was, and then in the mixing part, kind of just, being able to, I guess, shape her like timbre, I guess you would call it, of like making sure that stays consistent with her pitch being higher, her voice dropping, her having rasp, her having singing and all that stuff. So that was kind of like the chains that we used throughout the recording process.
Gotcha. Yeah, I do want to talk about the beats for a minute. I mean, there's a number of emerging young producers on this album, people like Kyle Banks, Devin Malik, Childish Major, Monte Booker. What was your experience when you were working with them, or what they were sending to you to get ready for mixing? What sort of assets were you receiving, and what was that process like?
All over the place. I love everyone that you just mentioned. Cal and Devin are TDE producers, so they're, part of the family. Cal has done Crazy and Persuasive and everything, so we kind of already had a rapport of how he likes stuff done. I think for the songs that he did, he came to the studio and I played it for him just to make sure that he's cool with how production is sitting and everything like that. And he's pretty good with sending pretty much everything because he's such a fine detailed producer. So he likes people to have the flexibility of being able to sit down and fine tune stuff. So all the percussion and all of that stemmed out. For some producers, it was like laptops were lost and hard drives were lost. So we kind of had to make do with what we had, but still it was just kind of using what we had. And it's like everyone, especially with modern producers, they have their sound for better or for worse. And because of that, the 2-track really does sound like some people get married to that, just the way it's hitting your final limiter or the way it's being bus compressed or whatever. And when you end up stemming it out, it ends up creating a different feeling that you might have to start working backwards in a mix. So especially when you're on a time crunch, that can be a whole tedious process in itself. So the 2-track mix that we did have to do or like had to reference, it wasn't as terrible because it was already kind of baked into the rough. So it wasn't as bad. I'm sure for y'all who are based in Dolby are laughing at that. But for me, that was based in stereo. It was kind of just like, all right, at least I can just use this as a reference to just get where I need to be. And then we can keep it pushing.
Yeah, well, Juan, I was going to say that, the assets that you're delivered present both an opportunity and a challenge sometimes, sort of like depending on what those are and how deep they go and how wide they are. But maybe, Juan, you can talk a little bit about like kind of your creative approach and your theory. I mean, obviously you're able to be intentional where you can, but like you mentioned, you did one mix kind of as a test. And what was your philosophy going into that, and sort of how has that evolved over the course of the record?
Yeah, that's an incredible question. First of all, this was like already like just aside from the time crunch and that kind of context, it truly was like a new challenge. For like with a bunch of pros and a bunch of cons. I was so used to by that point, to all the mixes I had done in Atmos up to that point was like I had as much flexibility as I could ask for. Ton of stems and with this project it was way more of a mixed bag, like we were just saying, like with the cases of some missing files and stuff like that and only having the 2-track. um for some songs there was like a lot of flexibility, and for some songs it was like, okay, I have a lot less to work with, like what am I going to do? And it creatively, for sure, it's like what they say, like when you or at least in my experience in the past, in like school, even in high school, middle school, whenever there's just some kind of a creative project or creative writing, for example, and there's and I have complete free roam, sometimes I'm like lost and I don't know what to do and creatively. And then, but when there's some limitation, some guidelines, then I feel like I've had moments where I would flourish, and that was in this situation where I feel like the path for each song, depending on what limitation there was, case by case, each song kind of makes itself. There was everything became self-explanatory, and it was the stereo mixing that really was like that guiding light, that lighthouse. That was like, well, that decision makes sense to do it this other way. Like, for example, I mean, for sure, in the in Atmos, I think like the meat and potatoes when it comes to vocal production is the delay throws and reverb and like stuff that's hard panned left and hard panned right. And Nissan Altima, for example, it had very few assets to work with, but even then, with what was done with the vocal production, with the little ad libs that show up like maybe 2 times max for short moments, and how in one song, one section of the song, the vocals are hard center, or in another section, it's two hard pan left, hard pan right, and that was enough for me to get it out into the room and to move that ad lib, those two moments, and when they came a little bit, and it was enough to create a more immersive experience for that limited song, more simple production wise than other songs like Stankapoo, for example. And yeah, I don't know, it just hands were tied, but at the same time, I think the vocal production of each song, regardless of what stem file delivery limitation there was, the vocal production of each song really shined through and brought each song to the finish line, Atmos mixing wise.
Yeah, for sure. And Stankapoo in particular being the first song on the record, right, or on the mixtape. I mean, the part where she says, "That's my conjunction," and like the background vocals and the ad libs all kind of like hit the side at once. And it seems like a lot of the reverb is sort of in the heights, and I can hear the panning of the vocal on the left and right, kind of creating a phantom center image. But I think that, the vocal production is so incredible that, in Atmos, it just sort of like starts to swell up, and you can sort of you're sort of surprised by it, but it's at the beginning of the record anyway. It's so cool. On Bullfrog, it almost kind of sounds like it's a live bass, Jada. I'm not sure if it is. It might just be a sample, but I thought that kind of was a cool way to drive the track, and there's a lot of vocal layers and stacks going on that really, I think, came through nicely.
Yeah, a lot of the vocal production stuff, like as her recording engineer, I'll help with like layering and blending. That's a big thing for her. But a lot of the time, in terms of like volume and placement and stuff, she's very hands on with that kind of thing. Like, she like, I need those higher. And like, naturally, as an engineer, I'm like, these are a little too loud. But then I'll finally like get an ear break or like hear it, like take a step back. And I'm like, oh, she was like, she's very particular about this stuff, especially like the presence of her voice. And so, and I can definitely credit a lot of that to her. Like another particular one is hide and seek. Like there's a ton of vocal automation that was done at like 3:30 in the morning of her just being like, no, it needs to feel like I'm directing a choir. And I'm just tired. And I'm like, all right, cool. But then I like woke up and it's like one of my favorite mixes on the project. I'm like, oh no, she knows what she was talking about for that. And I'm glad that we did that tedious act and it's able to translate on different formats.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I mean, and that's what you want, right? As an artist that's hands on and is being, making intentional decisions and creative decisions, even though at the time it might be 3:30 in the morning. Like you say, you wake up the next day and you're like, yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing, and it turned out. I think the production also kind of lends itself to a little kind of like 90s throwback a little bit. I have to just kind of mention, because it definitely has, like, from Boiled Peanuts into Denial, like it's sort of like got a 90s kind of hip hop vibe to it. I mean, Boiled Peanuts reminds me a little bit of like a classic Cypress Hill, or even a little of like Snoop's Murder Was the Case a little bit. It's kind of got a little of that feel to it. But one thing you mentioned earlier, which on Boom Bap, she's saying, like, I love all rap, like I'm everything, right? I think that's so cool. She's saying that, like, it could be, it could be boom, it could be bap, it could be bounce, it could be clap or house or trap, but I'm everything. And I think that is like what makes this record mixtape stand apart. I think big time is that, like, she's able to hit all of those different kind of vibes and really present it well.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing stepping into like, especially the first half of the project, like super rap, and her going back to that part. She was like, even though she's from the South, she's like, I learned to rap on boom bap beats. Like, even from her first project, like of the first big song that she blew up with Yucky Blucky Fruitcake, it's like this interesting first half beat, and then it goes to just a boom bap beat in the second half. And like that really kind of shows the evolvement of what she is into this tape. Yeah, like she likes the boom bap, she loves the Jay-Z, the MF Dooms of the world and all that stuff, but she's from the South. She likes Trina and Wayne and all that. So it's like you can hear it in cadence if it's not in B. If it's not in B, you can hear it in vocal. It's kind of everywhere, and it's like making sure that it stays true to what you're, paying homage to, but also it's like all this mesh of creating something new. It's really cool.
For sure. Juan, on hide and seek, it sounds like you were really able to make use of the vocal harmonies there and how well they were recorded and mixed. I think that one was a highlight for what can happen in Atmos when it's mixed right.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was. I don't know. It's what they did. Their foundation, Jada and Doe, and Brian, the other stereo mix engineer that was involved with this project. It it just made it so obvious to me, the decisions that were made in that song, for example. But I just want to echo like what Jada's saying too. Like I feel like I obviously Jada and don't know each other way more, but I could I loved getting to in the way we worked, even though it wasn't like the most ideal. When I got new batches of stems and new songs to work on I've explained it like this to other friends who've asked me. It's like I felt like it was an advent calendar, that type of vibe. Like I opened up a new box of goodies, like whoa, what am I gonna see? What am I gonna get? Like it was an exciting thing every time when I heard a new song, and from hearing just from first impressions, like I got that sensation that like, oh, this is a student of rap. This is both something really refreshing and at the same time really innovative and new and also like nostalgic and something that I recognize and just a blend of all of that together and um I don't know, it was just a huge joy to mix and it I don't know the production, the mixing, everything it just it explains itself. It's like do this, do that. Put those vocals behind the ear. Put that one delayed throw like in that corner of the room. Move it like this, like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm in awe.
Juan, I know you do a lot of work on headphones. Talk a little bit about like your approach to mixing in headphones and then taking it into a studio to check on. And, we were all three together a few weeks ago at Just for the Record in their room, but talk a little bit about your process, Juan, with kind of starting on headphones and then QCing in a room.
It's unique. It's weird, because I mean most Atmos engineers get to talk about their easy access to a room, but now that I'm not a student at college anymore, where we did have a room, it's now I don't know. I've had to do a lot more predominantly headphone binaural mixes in the beginning at least, and um, I don't know. Like we've mentioned, or like we've talked about in the past, I felt the only reason why I felt comfortable at all sticking to headphones was because of that months and months of experience and learning how translation works in a room and comparing it with my headphones and with more limited resources I have on my end. I feel like I got to really adapt to that situation of mine, and I don't know it when I'm listening in headphones, I I'm always imagining myself like I'm in the room. I'm always thinking in these two ways. I know it's and in the beginning I fell into this where there's a kind of an easy way to stumble and fall and get trapped into like just fully thinking about how does this sound in the room. This sounds great in the room and forgetting about the headphones or vice versa. And when I'm constantly thinking of both at the same time, for better or for worse. And like I was saying earlier, things that feel obvious. For example, if there's anything that's hard panned left and right, I immediately want to bring that out, bring that more into the middle, or um, yeah, I mean that, and then whatever, depending on what it is, bring in specific height to it, or whatever, or maybe bring it all the way to the top. And after that, I mean, I know it in my limited resources, it's tricky for me to get to a room to be able to double check, but it's always a huge help and a huge pleasure to listen to everything in the room. Be it if it was in this project, it was a lot harder to make that happen, but in general, for anything I've done, it is always it's always illuminating. It always opens my eyes to new things, but I'm always glad that those new things only really make up like 1 or 2% left that I didn't get to see when I was stuck in headphone land or whatever. And um, yeah, I don't know, getting to listen together with the mixes after a very long time of not hearing it in a room was again like eye opening. Like, yeah, that I could have done something new here, or oh, that I'm so glad that decision was the right one. So there's like both confirmations of things I've done, and then also um, oh, new ideas, new things that I could have done. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to go back and forth, but it's part of the experience and process for sure.
Yeah, Jada, how was your experience hearing it in, just for the record, in a room with Juan?
It was definitely like like just like my perception changed a lot. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing that I'll tell people, even with stereo mixes. I was like, a lot of people don't hear how their favorite song, how good their favorite song actually sounds. And I kind of felt that way with some Dolby Atmos mixes because I've heard in headphones and it sounds great, but then hearing it in a room, it's just an entirely different experience. Not saying one is better than the other, but having a room that's specifically designed for this format that is becoming more and more important each day. Um, it was you're able to experience a project in a new light, which is really really cool. It's being so close to this music and nothing really feeling new about it, and then having something presented is like, oh, this is new and this is nice. So yeah, it was great, for lack of better words.
It's always an experience sitting down in a room, and especially working on mixes for as long as you have, like I think you said it, one, like you feel like it's done, and you haven't listened to it for a little while, and then you get into a room and you get all of these new ideas, and it almost goes back to like sometimes a production or a mix is like never done. You just have to stop
Mm-hmm.
and just be like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, I'm good for now. This sounds great. The artist loves it. They think it sounds great as well, but it can help inform where you go next with like your next production or the next thing that you're working on. Jada, is there anything that you've got coming up that you can share that you're really excited about? I mean, I know, for example, in the past, you were on a panel discussion at NAMM with the We Are Moving the Needle organization, which is a great group that Dolby works really closely with. But what are you excited about that's coming up that you can share, or like what advice do you have to people that are looking to break in?
Excited coming up. I mean, we're, always working, especially with Doe's Camp and the other artists that I work with. Just recording a bunch of new stuff, tightening up, you know, stuff that we already have. That's probably as much as I can say, but um, a lot of new things coming, a lot of shows coming, and being able to, see the music out in the world is always great. So that's probably what I'm most excited for coming up. And then advice for people breaking in is just I know it's like the big thing is like, you know, opportunity plus preparation, or, preparation and opportunity equals whatever. But just letting your passion fuel, you wanting to learn more. I think that's the most important thing that I've come to realize, is that we get in this business, and my goal has always been to just support myself doing this. And I'm very blessed to be able to do that. And everything else is extra. And so, but that comes fueled in passion and just wanting to check out this new plugin and this new format and this new thing. That's what keeps us going. That's why we watch things like this and continue to do stuff, you know, for free or for experience or for just the love of what we do. So I think just allowing your passion to guide you to the new things, and always staying curious and excited, and you don't know everything. And that can be a daunting thing, or it can be a really positive thing, if depending on how you look at it. There's always something else to learn. And yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my broad advice. And be around people that are making the music you want to make. That's the big thing. I think, especially with younger, at least when I was there, I was, I know I have to intern. I know I have to do these things and put in my time and all that stuff. And my advice to when I was in college or whatever, it's like, if you're going to work for free, it might as well be somewhere that you like. So, if they're, find the people who are making the music you want to make and go study under them and go be around those people. And then when you get an opportunity, hopefully it's within that network and you're already set up for success to, be where you want to be.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And Juan, what would you say to young mixers and engineers looking to get into working not only in Atmos but within in the industry? And what are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, what Jada said was perfect. I can only add to all of that, and I think, I mean, yeah, I gotta like repeat about the whole thing of being excited and remembering that passion. I feel like something really important, especially in music, is to remember why you're pursuing it. Why are you involved with it? Is it for the love of music? Is it for other things? You know, analyzing yourself. You know, what are you trying to get out of everything? And you know, because at the end of the day, putting aside like business and things like that, this is art. You know, we're talking about art. We're being involved in art, and um, I also think like just being involved with as many people as possible. Just getting out there and making the music happen, get it out there. You know, it's not. I know. I guess that's more of an artist thing, but like in the same way for producers and engineers, like I guess don't keep it in the vault. You know, don't keep it on your hard drive forever for no one to ever see. You gotta take that big step and get out there and just work with as many people. And I think the what I really loved hearing from one of my mentors in the past was you never know, it might just be that one 3 minute and 20-second song that could change your entire life. All it takes is a few minutes, you know, and so I don't know. And then specifically with s- mixing engineers in like in stereo or in Atmos, I feel like just listening, you know, listening to the music you really like. I personally love getting to listen to the new albums that are coming out like every few weeks and hearing it in stereo, hearing it in Atmos. What are they doing? What's going on? And getting inspired myself and seeing new things that I can try out and just at the very bare minimum appreciating the art that's going on, you know? Yeah, and I guess for things that I'm excited for, um, I mean, whatever Jada and Juan are cooking up, I'm always gonna be excited for. Aside from like all the Doechii stuff, TD in general is has put out a lot of music recently. They're going to continue to put out a ton of great stuff. There's probably there's stuff I can't talk about in detail, but there's music coming out soon, and so I'm always excited to be a part of it, and I'm really appreciative and it's really cool to know from an Atmos mixing perspective how everyone really does, at least from the TDE roster, everyone has really cool, unique stuff that everyone brings to the table, and it translates in Atmos, you know. So it's different. Yeah, I'm the same engineer, but every single song I've been working on from different artists under the label has been different. So it's really I'm a geek for it. I'm excited.
All right, we'll make sure to pop a link down below so that people can listen to the record both in stereo and in Atmos. Jayda Love, Juan Razuri, thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you for having us.
Many thanks to my guests Jayda Love and Juan Razuri for joining me for this chat. You can check out the Dolby Atmos mixes of Doechii's Grammy-winning mixtape Alligator Bites Never Heal on enabled streaming services now. For more conversations with mix and mastering engineers and producers working in Dolby Atmos, check out Dolby Creator Talks on all the major podcast platforms, including the video version on YouTube. Links are in our show notes, or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're curious to know more about Dolby Creator Lab, go to dolbycreatorlab.com. There you'll find information about all of our programming. You can also subscribe to the mailing list and access the entire library of episodes of this podcast. That's where you'll also find the Dolby Atmos Music Accelerator and Dolby Atmos Music course covering all of the topics you need to get started creating music in Dolby Atmos. And for more resources, check the links in the show notes below. This is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Ben Givarz. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Marroquin. Thanks for joining.